Franklin J. Schaffner's Patton stands as one of the most significant war films of the 20th century, a sweeping portrait of General George S. Patton that has endured not only as a cinematic classic but also as a controversial meditation on leadership, war, and the complexities of human ambition. Released in 1970, with a screenplay by Francis Ford Coppola and Edmund H. North, the film won 7 Academy Awards including Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Actor for George C. Scott. More than 5 decades later, it continues to spark debate about whether it glorifies militarism or critiques it, and whether its depiction of Patton is a celebration of genius or a warning about hubris. To fully appreciate Patton, it is essential to analyze it not only as a work of film art but also as a cultural artifact situated at the height of the Vietnam War era, when American audiences were wrestling with questions about the purpose and morality of warfare. Few film openings are as iconic as that of Patton. The general, framed against a massive American flag, delivers a speech to unseen troops. Dressed in full regalia, he embodies both the grandeur and the intimidation of military leadership. This introduction immediately establishes the duality at the heart of the film, Patton as both a heroic figure of immense charisma and a troubling character who borders on megalomania. The stark presentation, with no diegetic context or interaction, functions less as a scene in narrative continuity and more as a thesis statement. The film is not going to be about a simple war story, but rather about the psychology of one man and what he represents. The choice to use this scene at the very beginning reflects Coppola's ambition to present Patton as myth before presenting him as man, forcing viewers to reckon with the legend before peeling away the complexities. George C. Scott's portrayal of Patton remains one of the most commanding performances in film history. His embodiment of the general avoids caricature while embracing the eccentricities and contradictions that define the real man. Scott captures Patton's fiery temper, his obsessive belief in reincarnation, and his unshakable confidence in his own destiny. He radiates authority in battle scenes, yet equally conveys the fragility of a man desperate for recognition and prone to self-sabotage. One of the most remarkable aspects of the performance is how Scott resists sentimentality. He does not soften Patton for the audience but instead delivers him in full, warts and all. This decision makes the performance both unsettling and fascinating, allowing viewers to grapple with their own feelings about him rather than being told how to respond. Scott famously refused the Oscar for his role, rejecting the competition and spectacle of awards. This decision has since added another layer of legend to the film, aligning with the notion of Patton himself as a man both in and out of step with the institutions around him. Just as the general often found himself at odds with military bureaucracy, Scott positioned himself against Hollywood convention. It is a case where the actor's off-screen choices mirrored the character he played. The film is structured as a biographical war epic, beginning with Patton's arrival in North Africa during the Second World War and following his campaigns through Sicily, France, and finally into Germany. Rather than covering Patton's entire life, the film focuses on his wartime career, compressing and dramatizing events for cinematic effect. The battles are staged with grandeur and scale, making extensive use of wide shots to showcase tanks, troops, and landscapes. Schaffner's direction emphasizes the sweep of war while still grounding the action in the psychology of Patton himself. Unlike many war films that treat battles as spectacles, Patton constantly brings us back to the mind of the general, positioning his personality as the true battlefield. Historians have noted that the film takes liberties with chronology and detail, condensing complex events into simplified arcs. The famous slapping incident, for example, is portrayed with dramatic intensity, but the film glosses over some of the nuances of its historical aftermath. Yet accuracy was never the filmmaker's primary aim. Instead, they sought to craft a character study, using historical episodes as vehicles to explore themes of leadership, glory, and downfall. For viewers expecting strict fidelity to fact, this may be frustrating, but for those open to cinema as interpretation, the film succeeds in creating a compelling narrative arc that mirrors classical tragedy. At the heart of Patton lies the tension between heroism and hubris. The general is portrayed as a brilliant strategist whose ability to read battlefields and inspire troops leads to decisive victories. His role in revitalizing American forces in North Africa, his daring campaign in Sicily, and his relentless drive across Europe are all depicted as feats of genius. Yet at every step his arrogance, lack of diplomacy, an inability to restrain his impulses create obstacles as significant as any enemy. He berates subordinates, insults allies, and commits public blunders that nearly end his career multiple times. The film resists offering a simple moral verdict. Patton is both indispensable and intolerable, a man whose flaws are inseparable from his brilliance. This ambivalence elevates the film above conventional war narratives, making it a meditation on the paradoxes of leadership. The theme of destiny is another important thread. Patton frequently speaks of past lives as a warrior, convinced that he has fought in battles across centuries. While some interpret this as madness, the film presents it as part of his inner conviction that he was born for war. This belief drives his confidence but also reveals a troubling detachment from ordinary humanity. For Patton, war is not merely a political or military necessity but the fulfillment of personal destiny. By portraying this obsession, the film critiques the dangerous allure of war for those who see it as an arena of personal glory rather than human tragedy. Schaffner and cinematographer Fred J. Keenkamp craft Patton with a visual style that reinforces its themes. The widescreen format allows for sweeping battle panoramas, capturing the grandeur of mechanized warfare. Tanks roll across deserts and fields in compositions that emphasize symmetry and scale, underscoring Patton's fascination with spectacle. At the same time, the film often uses close-ups of Scott's face, capturing every twitch and intensity of his expression. This juxtaposition of epic scale and psychological intimacy mirrors the dual focus of the film, war as history and war as the canvas for one man's psyche. The score by Jerry Goldsmith further enhances the atmosphere. The use of the eerie trumpet echo motif, created through an echoplex device, suggests Patton's belief in reincarnation and his otherworldly connection to the past. The music alternates between martial bombast and haunting introspection, reflecting the tension between external glory and internal obsession. Goldsmith's work is not just accompaniment, but a vital narrative element, giving sonic form to Patton's character. One cannot separate Patton from the era in which it was released. In 1970, the United States was deeply embroiled in the Vietnam War, a conflict that had become increasingly unpopular and divisive. Against this backdrop, a film about an uncompromising general who glorified battle carried particular resonance. For some viewers, Patton represented the kind of decisive leadership they felt was lacking in contemporary military and political figures. For others, the film served as a critique of such militarism, highlighting the dangers of leaders who see war as personal theater. The ambiguity of the film allowed it to be interpreted both ways, which contributed to its cultural impact. Conservatives embraced Patton as a hero, while more critical audiences saw him as a cautionary tale. This dual reception demonstrates the film's complexity, functioning simultaneously as celebration and critique. While Patton dominates the film, his relationships with other figures provide important counterpoints. His interactions with General Omar Bradley, played with quiet restraint by Karl Malden, illustrate a clash of styles. Bradley embodies calm pragmatism, diplomacy, and steadiness, serving as a foil to Patton's volatility. Their exchanges highlight questions about what kind of leadership is most effective in war: brilliance that inspires risk-taking or steadiness that ensures sustainability. The film also depicts tensions with British commanders, particularly Bernard Montgomery, underscoring the friction that can arise even among allies. These rivalries are not mere subplots but essential components of the exploration of ego, ambition, and the collective effort of coalition warfare. Despite its accolades, Patton has not escaped criticism. Some argue that the film glamorizes warfare by presenting battle scenes with grandeur, and by focusing on a man who clearly revels in conflict. Others contend that the film does not adequately address the suffering of ordinary soldiers or the civilian toll of war. By keeping the camera primarily on Patton and other commanders, the film risks reducing war to a stage for generals rather than a lived experience for millions. Furthermore, the decision to center on Patton's personal destiny may strike some viewers as indulgent, overshadowing the broader moral and political stakes of the Second World War. Another critique concerns the way the film handles Patton's disciplinary controversies, particularly the slapping of a soldier suffering from battle fatigue. While the scene is presented with shock and leads to consequences, some critics believe the film does not fully grapple with the ethical gravity of such behavior. Instead, it positions the incident primarily as a setback in Patton's career rather than as a moral failing with lasting repercussions. This framing reflects the filmmaker's focus on Patton as tragic hero rather than as a commander accountable to the human cost of his actions. Patton has had a lasting impact on both cinema and culture. The opening speech has become one of the most recognizable moments in film history, often parodied and referenced in popular media. The film has influenced subsequent war movies by demonstrating the potential of character-driven narratives within the epic war genre. Its exploration of flawed leadership has also resonated beyond film studies, with military academies and leadership programs using the film as a teaching tool. The ambiguous portrayal of Patton continues to provoke debate, ensuring that the film remains relevant long after its release.